I know I'm a tiny bit late, but major, major respects and congratulations to Coco Gauff for winning Roland-Garros this year. If you saw after the match, she's big on TikTok and Instagram, and she even said in her notes from 4 years ago when she was 17, in horrible grammar, she wrote, "I had this dream that I'm going to win the French Open, like, I don't know." And 4 years later, she did it. It's the same thing when we got that clip of Carlos Alcaraz when he was 12 years old, and he said his dream was to win Roland-Garros and Wimbledon, and he did it by the time he was 21, because that guy is a generational talent that we haven't seen since the big three. But Coco Gauff, what a performance. 6'7", 6'3", 6'4", I believe it was, against Aryna Sabalenka, the best women's player in the world, who I believe is still the best women's player in the world. But Coco seems to be able to get the upper hand against her. We always say that styles make fights, and this is a huge indicator of how much styles make fights, because it doesn't seem to me like Aryna Sabalenka has figured out how to play a player like Coco Gauff. Iga Swiatek, her strength isn't her serve, it isn't her net game, it's her defense, it's her ability to get great topspin on the ball, it's her return rate, it's her backhand, like those things. But a more athletic player like Coco Gauff, who's able to cover every inch of the baseline, who has better net game, who has a better serve, and who isn't threatened by Sabalenka's incredible power. I shared that quote the other day about how Sabalenka said, "You want power? I'll show you power." And she always shows her players insane power beyond what we've seen in the women's game in a very long time. But Coco wasn't threatened by it. She was like, "I'm going to return every single one of your serves. I'm not going to be so afraid of your forehand that I'm going to run across all the base trying to predict and guess. I'm going to go to the net. I'm going to still serve strong against you. I'm going to make you uncomfortable." Even though many players are just afraid of how powerful a player like Sabalenka is. 6 feet tall, long arms, and has just a massive ability to strike her forehands in any direction that she wants the ball to go. But Coco wasn't threatened by it. And this is the same thing that happened in the US Open at 2023, when Sabalenka won the first set, and you would think a player as good as her isn't going to lose this match. But then Coco came back. But I just thought to myself, it's very different in that tournament because it's in America. Coco is the hometown favorite. Everyone wants her to win. The crowd is behind her. And she came back and persevered because it was a Coco affair. Same thing that happens when a French player plays here, an Australian player plays in Melbourne, or a British player plays in Wimbledon. Wimbledon's a little bit different because, well, it's Wimbledon. But I did not know, in a more neutral site, when there aren't as many people actively vying for Coco, she could pull it off. And she did. She was cool, calm, and collected under pressure. And she showed a side of her game that I wasn't certain that she had. We remember what happened last year in the Olympics on this very same court when Coco lost, I believe it was in the third round, the singles match, and she cried. She visibly cried because one of the umpire decisions did not go her way. One of the annoying things about playing on clay is that they don't use Hawkeye. So because of that, a ball bounces, players have to look at it and be like there, and then the umpire says, out or safe. And it's so frustrating because everywhere else they use Hawkeye. So you're not fighting against a ref, you're fighting against technology. Here you're fighting on subjectivity, and that's the annoying part. Subjectivity can be wrong, and that's where you'll get into arguments and disagreements. Obviously, subjectivity can be wrong. And she visibly cried because she said, "Stuff like this always happens to me." And that was hard because it felt like, are you taking a little bit of the victim part? Because are 1 or 2 points going to decide the match? No. But are her emotions in that setting going to decide the match? And unfortunately, they're in the Olympics, and she just came out here with an absolute vengeance against Sabalenka, who I thought was in such an amazing run of form that there was no way that anybody would beat her. Anybody. And she played a much tougher semifinal against Iga Swiatek than Coco did against Louise Boisson. I said Louise Boisson, but I absolutely loved watching her play. I loved her taking out Pegula and Andreeva and even Mertens and Giacomo. But it definitely seemed like her run came to an end. It just came to an end. There was nothing more that she could do. There's nothing more that she had left in the tank. And then she just played a player that is levels better than even Pegula and Andreeva, even though those two players are number 3 and number 6 in the world. And she just took it to Boisson and just said, "Okay, you've had a nice run, but it's over." But for Coco Gauff to stay calm and collected after losing a close first set tiebreak to breaking her in the second set and then winning the third set after Sabalenka had a break point to break it right back and be level on serve. And if it was level on serve 6-6, you'd probably favor Sabalenka in a tiebreak just because she has a slightly better record in tiebreaks. So Coco, just unwavering ability to trust herself, trust her serve, trust her returning ability, trust the athletic freak that she is, where she's able to cover every inch of the baseline, and trust the fact that she can get into Aryna Sabalenka's head, because Sabalenka was visibly frustrated in the second set, the same way that she was against Iga. But against Iga, she persevered, but Iga also just fell apart in the last set. I mean, it was 6-love, a bagel in the last set, which is not what you want to see in this highly anticipated matchup against, not currently, but the two players who have been the number one and number two players in the world for a long period of time. And Iga completely fell apart, but Sabalenka just let her frustrations go away from her. Coco didn't fall apart. Coco didn't subside to the pressure. She said, I'm going to go take this, and she took it, and you have to love that. Major respects to Coco. She is the next American in line after Serena Williams' dominance was over. I know she's not technically American based on who she represents, but she is. Naomi Osaka, we thought she was going to be the next one. She had other issues that kind of had her taken away from the game, and she has not been able to recoup her form, but Coco's the next one, and it's looking like we have a great future. Sabalenka's only 27. She's not like old. She's older than Coco. Coco will outlast her in the sport, but Sabalenka will be competing for the number one spot barring injury for the next 5 years or so. Iga, I believe, will find her form again, because I don't believe you win 4 French Opens and 5 slams and then just fall apart, because in the last year, if we're being honest, Iga has been poor. She went from number one in the world to I think number 8. Kunwen Zheng, who I'm a big fan of myself, will be in that mix as well. Pegula will be back, and Dreva's only 18. Let's not forget that. So we have a great run of players vying for the number 1, number 2, number 3 spots in the women's rank for a long periods in the future, and you have to be excited about it. You have to be excited about it. Coco had a great run. She defeated Madison Keys, who had been undefeated in majors all year, who dramatically won the Australian Open against Aryna Sabalenka as well. So you have to think to yourself, man, Sabalenka in these big matches, she sometimes struggles. She does. Gauff twice in the U.S. Open and the Australian and the French Open that just happened, and then Madison Keys in the Australian Opens. She can sometimes struggle because being that highly ranked, you oftentimes face people who are nowhere near as good as you, and then you make light work of them, absolute light work of them. And then when you go from the level being here to here, it can get to you like it did against Iga, because her level is better than anybody that she played before that. And then Coco was a person on that level, but in a much better run of form, and who was much more determined to win because Iga had already done it 4 times at this tournament. Whew. Coco, way to go. Well done. She didn't bite. She persevered. She came through. And I cannot wait to see what happens at Wimbledon, because at Wimbledon, we've had a lot of, I don't want to say randoms, but just not the players that you would expect win Wimbledon, from Rybakina to Barbara, the Czech player, on the women's side. On the men's side, it's almost always who we expect. I mean, Carlos Alcaraz won the last 2. Before that, Novak won 4 times in a row. Roger won 8 times. Rother won twice. Andy Murray won twice. It was sort of always the players that we expected to win, not that many surprises. Wimbledon, we have a lot more surprises, even though Serena did win 7 times and Venus did win 5 times. But since their dominance has been over, the champions have been a little bit more, I don't know who it's going to be. I don't know. There's not many players in the women's game right now who you would say are grass specialists, the same way that a player like, Alcaraz is a grass specialist, Djokovic are grass specialists. Not saying that they're not great on all the surfaces, because they are, but dominant, able to be dominant on that surface. So I can't wait to see what happens there. Brand new tournament, a more neutral setting, because clay gives such a much bigger advantage, I believe, to players who are really good on clay. That's how Nadal was able to win those French Opens, and Iga was able to, be the queen of clay for the last 5 years or so. I don't think we have the same type of dominance on hard court, and especially grass, that we do in any side of the draw. I know we can have multiple time champions, but I feel like that's just more because of how good they are than how much the surface benefits them. So I cannot wait for Wimbledon on the women's side. But once again, Coco Gauff did it. She is the Roland-Garros champion. She is a 2-time slam champion, and you have to take your hat off to her after everything that she goes through with media and scrutiny. And you gotta love to see it.